I have the pleasure now to go to the next presentation, which is about China and China's response to the pandemic, but also China's outlook towards possibly investing, something that Asif was mentioning earlier. How can we work with China to invest in other countries, to take benefit of duty-free access, to take benefit of nearshoring? So it's a great pleasure now to have Mr. Xu making a presentation to us. Mr. Xu is the vice chairman of the vice president of the China National Textiles and Apparel Council, which is a very powerful body in China. It used to be a ministry. It's still very important. It's not a ministry anymore, but it's still very important in the country. He's the vice president. He's also the chairman of the sub-council of the textile industry of CCPIT. And he's the acting head of China Textiles Global Union. So Mr. Xu has over 30 years of experience in the industry. He has organized a number of world-renowned brand exhibitions covering the entire textiles and clothing chain. And in recent years, he'd also been deeply committed to going global, China going global, China's strategy of the textiles and clothing industry, that successfully leading over 100 Chinese textiles enterprises to make on-site research and then make investments overseas. And some of them also in what we heard from Bangladesh, also in Ethiopia and in other countries of Africa. So welcome, Mr. Xu. Thank you very much for your time. And we are very pleased and curious to listening to your presentation. Over to you.
Dear Mr. Kanapi, Ms. Chamberia, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and good afternoon. It's a great honor for me to be invited to attend this online seminar. So today I'd like to share the current situation of China's textile and apparel industry, especially regarding our industry's operation in 2020 with all of you, and how we respond to the outbreak of this epidemic. Meanwhile, I will focus on the future cooperation of textile and apparel industry between China and the 7 partner countries which are included in the GTEX program now. So first of all, I would like to give you a brief introduction of current situation of our industry. China's textile and apparel industry has established a complete and advanced industrial chain after decades of development. Our industry is now one of the most important pillar industries in China, and also the important player in the global textile and apparel industry. Until the end of 2019, we had about 35,000 enterprises with the annual revenue over 20 million yuan. The operation revenue of these 35,000 enterprises reached last year 4,943 billion RMB. Based on the rough calculation, our share of global fiber processing can exceed 50%. The direct employment of our industry is over 20 million people. Indirect employment reached to the about 100 million people who are the farmers growing the natural fibers, etc. More than 300 industrial clusters and specialized markets make our industry full of vitality. Even though when facing the outbreak of the COVID-19, the industry was still affected greatly. Here's the timeline, which we can see a clear picture of our experience this year. You see, this year is quite unusual. When the epidemic outbreak by the end of this January, all of us were in the Chinese Lunar Spring Festival holidays. All the textile and garment factories stopped their operation for nearly 1 month, except those who can produce the PPE and safety products. 90% of the industries and the process returned to normal order in the late April. Since then, the daily production of masks was raised from 20 million pieces up to hundreds of millions. From April, with the steady recovery of the China's economy, domestic market of textiles and garments started to revive. The online sales showed a faster growth than the offline sales. Because of the strong demand of the masks overseas, the industry's export also showed a significant pickup. Now the production, the domestic consumption, and export are all recovering in this industry gradually. While the unstable overseas epidemic is still a big threat to the industry's health development. So now we show you some more specific data for our operation situation. Firstly is the production. First of all, in terms of production from January to October, the growth of industrial added value year on year of the whole industry has a decrease of 3.7%. Only the technical textiles has achieved a very high speed growth of 58.6% year on year basis. A similar situation was in the production of man products, except nonwovens. The other products such as clothing, fabric, yarn were all on a lower output level. As to the domestic consumption, the retail sales of apparel started to bounce since April, while online sales performance was much better than the sales from brick and mortar stores. From January to October, the online sales for wearing products had a growth of 5.6%. Meanwhile, the clothing sales from brick and mortar stores also turned to growth since August, and the growth rate is increasing month by month. So influenced by the epidemic, investment confidence of the industry has been significantly affected. The investment in fixed assets of our industry fell 19.6% year on year in the first 10 months. But comparing to the first half of the year, this decline has narrowed gradually. So let's look at the export. Export of the industry showed a V-shape of bounce in the first 10 months. Until October, the export of the industry reached to $240.6 billion with a year-on-year growth of 9.5%. Millions of masks and protective suits export is the main driving force of this V-shaped bounce. But we know that the traditional products are still facing a difficult situation. In the first 10 months, garment exports decreased by 8.6% year on year in total, while on a monthly basis, the export of garments has started turning to growth since August. Now here are some figures about our export of masks and the protective suits. You see, according to the official data from March 15th to October 20th, China had provided anti-epidemic assistance to 150 countries and 7 international organizations. During this period, our industry exported 179 billion pieces of masks and 1.73 billion protective suits to all over the world. So I just share some information about the China's textile and apparel operation up to now. Now, I would like to give you some introduction of China's outward investment and the cooperation of the industry. The outward investment and the cooperation of China's textile and apparel industry has been developing steadily these years. The rough statistics show that the outward investment stocks of our industry has exceeded $10 billion. Enterprises in our industry have invested in more than 100 countries and regions. The investment included almost all the sectors, such as spinning, weaving, garment manufacturing, and different forms, just like green field investment, asset acquisitions, joint ventures, and other typical forms of FDI. So investment cooperation from our industry is covering the most parts of the world. Southeast Asia is the most concentrated place for China's investment. African countries is also the important partners of us. According to the official data from 2015 to the first half of this year, Vietnam has received $1.5 billion investment from China's textile and apparel industry. Ethiopia ranked the second place. Tajikistan is the biggest partner of us in Central Asia. The investment volume from our industry to Tajikistan since 2015 reached about $86 million. So our industry is also paying much attention to deepen the cooperation on the raw materials, design, research and development, brand and marketing resources across the textile and fashion industry chain around the world. I believe we have heard at least some cases from the media. So the epidemic has disrupted the normal rhythm of our outward investment. In the first half of this year, the content investment from our industry reduced 42% comparing to the same period of last year. Due to the COVID-19, our investment is truly slowed down but still move on. Although the movement of people is still very difficult because of the epidemic, we still can receive the investment inquiries from our members all over the country. Obviously, that our enterprises still have a very strong desire to continue the international cooperation. So, how to promote the industry's international cooperation in post-epidemic era is our core mission at this special time. We are also focusing on some emerging markets which have huge potential of win-win cooperation with us in the textile and apparel industry. So the following 7 countries which GTEX program had much attention are our targeted partners too. According to the existing trading cooperation in 2019, China imported from Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, Tajikistan, Jordan, Madagascar, and Kazakhstan in total reached about $340 million. And the main products China imported are apparel, accessories, industrial textiles, cotton, silk, wool, and some related products. So under the Belt and Road Initiative from 2015 to the first half of 2020, the total investment volume from China to the mentioned 7 countries reached to about $250 million. We do have some very successful cooperation cases in these areas. For example, our member, the King Deer Cashmere Company, they invested in Madagascar over 20 years, and now there are more than 6,000 local workers are working in this factory, and a lot of them give a very specialized technical training, and some of them have been trained the senior management officers. So with CNTC's promotion, another member, Handa Enterprises, who is from Wuxi, Jiangsu province, signed the investment cooperation contract with Egypt Cotton Textile Industry Holding Company last November. This is also the first time for this company to start a journey for cooperation in Africa. So as the National Council for the whole industry, CNTSC has been working to ensure the textile and the apparel industry to have healthy, sustainable cooperation with the global partners. In the past years, we have organized a lot of activities to achieve this target, such as Belt and Road Textile Conference. Last year, we had a very high-level governmental delegation from Madagascar to do the investment promotion in our conference. We also organized special investment promotion seminars for Egypt and Central Asian partners. We also organized trade and investment enterprises to visit these targeted markets every year. So in recent years, we have visited all the mentioned 7 countries. So we think that we will restart this job again immediately after the epidemic. So for the future cooperation with these important markets, I think we will continue to work through the following aspects. According to the trade cooperation, our series of international exhibitions could supply a business exchange platform. We have organized the whole production chain, textile and garment trade fairs in China, and also we have shows in Paris, United States, and some other countries. So we hope these 7 countries producers, you're welcome to join us in the future. And for the industrial production capacity cooperation, we will continue to hold promotion activities in the interests of all parties. We're also willing to work with ITC team together to expand new win-win greenfield investment to serve for our members and the international friends. Because of this epidemic, solidarity and cooperation have assumed an unprecedented importance to all of us. I hope our industry could have more opportunities to communicate deeply with all partners, and I also wish we can join hand in hand for the common development in the future. So, ladies and gentlemen, Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you all.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Chu. It was a very insightful presentation. Also, thank you very much for your continued willingness to collaborate with the countries, with ITC, and maybe we can get something rolling in these countries, hopefully soon when the pandemic will be over. I hope. I see so far, I was gone. One question in the question answer, but it was basically saying that, so what can African countries do to attract some of your members to invest? You mentioned Madagascar already, you mentioned also Egypt. So what can countries like Tunisia, Morocco do in order to bring Chinese companies in? Because they feel that they will benefit from nearshoring. So brands and retailers placing more orders in the future to Morocco and Tunisia because they're closer to the EU market. So what can they do in order to get some of your members interested?
Yes, indeed. Now in China, we have some producers, manufacturers. They do invest in African countries, including Egypt and Ethiopia, etc. I think in the future, there are still many Chinese companies. They are interested in investing in these 7 countries because they are very, just you mentioned, they are very close to the EU markets. And I think that to attract Chinese companies to invest in these countries, these countries should issue some very clear preferential policies for the foreign investment. And the stable political environment is also very, very important. We know that maybe for the labor cost, now these countries' labor cost is lower than China, but it's not only the factor of labor cost. We need, I think the Chinese companies would like to see a very comprehensive preferential business environment. That's very important. So, on the level of the communications between the associations, CNTSA would like also to communicate and to work with these countries' textile and garment associations to especially to organize or to hold the seminars, the promotional activities, and to exchange information. And we also would like to, after the pandemic, it is still our interest to organize Chinese companies to visit these countries to find the suitable partners. So we are generally is positive to work with them. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Jana. Are there some hands raised to live questions?
Not at all.
Yeah.
So I invite everybody to, if you have a question, now you have the chance. It's not always that you have the chance to talk to the Vice President of the China National Textiles and Apparel Council.
You're right. You're right.
I can also invite some of the people on the panel if they would like to ask a question from the other panel members. While we wait for a panel, I have another question maybe for you, or I have a question now, because in my introductory remarks in the first presentation, which you probably didn't see, we looked into the EU import figures for apparel. and we saw the different countries and how the negative growth of EU imports from the countries, no, year on year in the first semester of 2020 as compared to 2019. But we also saw in the figures that the Chinese reduction was very small. So the EU reduction of imports was only about 2.5%, whereas for other countries it was 30 or 40 or more percentage. Do you have any explanation for this? Is it mainly because of the exports of personal protective equipment, PPE and masks and gowns?
What I can explain maybe because of the fast development of China's textile and apparel industry. So the products from China, the quality and design is going to the upper end. Maybe these products can meet the consumers' demand better. And secondly, in China, we controlled this pandemic very quickly. So a lot of Chinese companies, producers, they get recovery very quickly, and production started again. And especially after March, we have some international orders from Europe, from America. Maybe this is the reason. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, I think these are good potential explanations. I agree with this. And also moving up the value chain to produce high value products, because it was figures on value, not on volume. So maybe this is a good explanation. Can I ask one more question with regard to the investment and to attract Chinese investment? How do you see Chinese investment, not in terms of countries, but in terms of which part of the value chain you see more interest from Chinese companies? Will this be more in garment manufacturing, or will this be also in textiles?
From the very beginning, you can see that there are many garment makers. They invested outside China, and also from spinning sector. We have a lot of investment in Vietnam, but with the development of this country's industry, so now more and more Chinese weaving, dyeing, finishing, even some chemical fiber companies, they would like to invest outside China. So in the future, I think from Chinese side, we would like to see the whole production chain could be set up in these countries.
I think this is good news for many of the countries. But would you see this as a country-specific investment? So would you invest in Morocco or in Tunisia or in Egypt? Or would you prefer an investment that goes into the region and then serves the entire region?
No, now most of the investment in Southeast Asia and in African countries, but it does not mean that we only to invest in these two areas. So because in China there are too many individual companies, they can make their own choices. So they will see which country and which area is more suitable for them. So that's very important. So it does not mean we just go these areas. Maybe we, in the future, to Morocco, to Tunisia. This is the possibility is there. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chu. Last call. Anybody, Jana, who is wanting to raise his or her hand and ask a question live?
No, but there is a question on the chat.
So there is a question to you in writing, which is from Sohail Kabir. He is asking, comparing to the neighboring countries, Chinese investment in Bangladesh textile industry is less. Is there any policy to increase it in the future? So this actually is with regard to investment in Bangladesh.
Yeah, indeed that we have less investment in Bangladesh. I think this may be related to the Bangladesh policy for attracting foreign investment, and also the whole business environment affected some Chinese potential investors, maybe.
Okay, but you heard our colleague, Mr. Asif, who was saying we are lacking 20% of knitting capacity and we are lacking 60% of weaving capacity. So there's probably also.
Well, but a possibility is there. I think because China and Bangladesh, we are very good relationship. We have very good relationship. So we send delegation actually every year to visit Bangladesh. So we know the structure of the Bangladesh's textile and garment industries. So I think that in the future, later on after the pandemic, I think there's still a lot of chance for China and Bangladesh to cooperate with each other.
Great. So if there's no more questions, last call. So apparently not. Then Mr. Chu, I thank you very much for the good presentation. Also for the questions.
Matthias, we have a raised hand.
Oh, we have a raised hand. Sorry. Jaina.
I cannot. Ah, here we go. Excuse me.
So sorry, there's no more question.
Go ahead.
Bonjour. Bonjour, juste pour l'investissement chinois, j'ai une question concernant quel est le type d'investissement? Est-ce que c'est pour la fabrication par des entreprises chinoises ou bien c'est de la sous-traitance dans des pays comme par exemple le Maroc, la Tunisie?
Delphine, can you help?
Yeah, we actually have different kinds of investment outside China. For those developing countries, all the investments mostly for set up the new capacity. And in the developed countries like France, there's a Chinese company. They bought the French brand names years ago. And also we have companies, they bought or they merged the raw materials from developed countries like Australia, like Canada, yeah, and also some Chinese companies, they cooperate with the local partners to set up research and development center, like in England, like in Italy, etc.
Okay, I think the question was also a little bit with regard to an earlier question I asked, whether you would see more investment going into garment manufacturing, so just the sewing operations, or what countries would like to see also more the backward link, the backward part, the textile part.
Mm-hmm. I think for the first step, maybe the garment section will go outside China first. Then, based on the demand of the factory, they gradually, as I know from Vietnam, from Cambodia, they gradually, as the second phase or third phase, they will set up dyeing and finishing and weaving. Yeah. from the end to the upstream.
Yeah.
This is the normal way.
So it's a gradual investment move.
Yeah.
Okay, Jaina, anybody else?
Not at this moment.
Okay, so that brings us to the end, Mr. Xu. Thank you very much for the insightful presentation, also for all the questions answered. I think they gave some food for thought. We are looking forward to the end of the pandemic. Everybody is, but particularly also then working with you to see what we can do with some of the GTEX beneficiary countries, and to benefit from the Chinese know-how, but also possibly some investment in the future.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, and goodbye.
Goodbye.